Welcome to Bull TV. I'm your host, David Pickler, president of Pickler Wealth Advisors and lifelong advocate for public education. Bull TV is a monthly show that empowers, educates, and entertains while highlighting citizens of Collierville who inspire and deliver solutions for a stronger community. Bull TV is presented by Pickler Companies and is proudly produced by the students and staff of Collierville High School. We invite you to watch our show at thebullnetwork.com, picklercompanies.com, CHSTV 19, and the Dragon TV YouTube channel. On today's show, we're sitting down with Collierville's Mayor, Stan Joyner, to discuss a post-COVID vision of Collierville. Not only will we discuss the challenges that Collierville faced in the wake of the pandemic, but we will give our audience an engaging, behind-the-scenes look at where the town is headed, who Mayor Joyner is, how he leads, and the greatest leadership lessons he has learned in his journey. Stay tuned for this in-depth look at our mayor, our town, and the post-COVID vision for Collierville. Today, I'm joined by Mayor Stan Joyner, a Collierville native who has lived and served in the Collierville community all his life. Mayor Joyner was elected to the Collierville Board of Mayor and Aldermen in 1999 and was serving his third term when elected mayor in 2008. In 2012, 2016, and 2020, he was re-elected and is now serving his fourth term as our mayor. Mayor Joyner is a strong promoter of stewardship, safety, service, and schools for the community of Collierville. Mayor Joyner, thank you for joining us for the very first episode of Bull TV.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, we're excited to have you. Now, we have a lot to get to, and so I want to give people an opportunity to really get to know you. Okay. So, in 3 words, who is Stan Joyner?
Gee, it's hard for me to do anything in 3 words. You know, a number of things, though, popped into mind when I could do that. So it could be husband, father, businessman, and mayor, or it could be, you know, a conservative Christian steward along those same lines. So take your pick.
You know what? I think all of them are great. So as mayor, we're going to let you have the latitude to have a few more than 3. What really motivated you to get involved in public service?
Well, if you will bear with me a second, in 1987, 12 years actually before I was elected to alderman, Mayor Herman Cox asked me to serve the town on the planning commission. And so I did that during the time period that right before Collierville hit its great growth spurt. At the time, in 1987, the population of Collierville was about 12,500, something in that nature. And then, you know, in the early 90s, the boom hit. And, you know, there were 1 or 2 years in there that we were building over 600 single-family dwellings a year and was the fastest growing municipality in the state of Tennessee. So,
right.
So I saw that growth, and then in 1999, Mayor Cox decided that he would retire, and Vice Mayor Tom Brooks decided that he would retire.
What a great man.
Oh, absolutely, both of them. And then we had 2 aldermen that both decided to run, 3 aldermen that all 3 decided to run for mayor. And so right quickly, you know, we saw that it was going to be a total turnover basically in the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. So Alderman Cox Mayor Cox and Alderman Brooks twisted my arm. They didn't have to twist too hard, and asked me if I would consider running for one of the open alderman seats, which I did, and was elected, and the rest of it you've already covered. So
That's fantastic. Alderman Brooks actually was a former member of the Shelby County Board of Education.
Yes.
And in fact, was a member of the last appointed board.
Correct.
And of course, I had the honor of getting to know Mayor Cox, and what a supporter of the schools.
Oh, absolutely.
And I mean, he talked all the time about how really the schools help make Collierville what it is.
Well, and he was absolutely right.
And so,
and still does today.
Tremendous legacy in that entire family for both the Brooks and Cox.
Exactly.
What do you think, Mayor, makes a good leader?
I think it's, for me, the things that I look at is someone that can do it by example, can lead by example. Along with that comes communication. You have to have good communication if you're going to be a leader. And then you need to have good skills in delegating, because you can't do it all yourself. If you think you can, you'll be in for a big surprise and exhausted. So those three things come to mind.
Well, you talked just about delegating. Is there a secret that you have found in all your years of mayor that you found for really managing all these different responsibilities that you have?
Well, it really makes you become a good time manager. And to some degree, you and take this the right way, but I think to some degree you have to be selfish with your time, because you can't do everything. And there are some things, and I know my wife fusses at me all the time. She said, if you tell one more person yes, I'm going to hit you in the head.
I think your wife and my wife had that same conversation.
Right. So I think those are things that come in it. And then you also have to have the ability to separate the majors from the minors, because there are a lot of minor things that can kind of steal that time. But what I've found, though, is that the minor things are the things I enjoy most about being mayor.
Let's talk a little bit about, I guess the elephant in the room, one we've all been dealing with. I know you spent an enormous amount of time, and that's COVID-19 and the pandemic. Mayor, as we all know, 2020 was a year unlike any that we've seen in recent history. Not only were we dealing with the pandemic, but there were protests, riots, as well as political and civil unrest. Through it all, was this the toughest season that you've encountered as mayor?
I would have to say yes. When I look back on the other, now 12 years as mayor, there's not been anything. There have been challenges that have come along. The formation of the school district being one of them, and being able to separate from the legacy Shelby County system and morph into a new system was challenging. But by far and away, the COVID crisis pandemic has been the toughest.
Well, and I really can't let that comment go without just telling you once again how strong a leader that you were for Collierville and for all of the municipal communities. And we all know there were a lot of heroes during that time period.
Right.
Both in the legislature and the suburban mayors, and all throughout the community, people who came together.
Right.
And the reason why we have the schools that we have. And so, thank you, sir, for all what you have done.
Well,
That was amazing. Let's talk specifically, if we can, about this pandemic, because it's been so amazing. Do you feel that you are stronger as a leader after leading the town of Collierville through such uncertain times? I'm sure it took a toll on you.
Well, there were, there are times that all of us became fatigued. We became frustrated because, as you know, the pandemic set in and it just didn't move as fast as what we had all hoped it would move. I know that when we first went under the first health directive, we were only approving that health directive for a week, and for weeks we went through and still are issuing the directive for the end of the health directive period. The last one we had was 4 weeks, and it's coming up right now. But it just didn't. It didn't, or the recovery, we'll say, didn't move fast enough. And then it began to affect more and more things: schools, businesses, people's right to go out and socialize.
Right.
People were even encouraged not to go to church. and because those gathering places, the statistics showed and the data showed that that's where the COVID spread when you were doing that. So it's tough. It was tough for everybody.
Well, I know one of the casualties of this pandemic was a lot of things that you had planned and that the town had planned to celebrate the 150th anniversary of the town. And when we think about the Shining a Light campaign and all the things that you had prepared, you know, we certainly regret those things we weren't able to do. But do you believe that that now that the light is shining brighter as a town, because we've all been able to pull together and we've learned so much and been better because of the experience in some respects?
I certainly do, and I think that good times are going to come again, obviously. But I think that for me, especially, and others, board members, obviously, because we are a team, I think it kind of was a sobering thing that we shouldn't take for granted fair on the square. We shouldn't take that we've had on the first Saturday in May for 40-something years. And we don't take for granted anymore the 4th of July and the fireworks show and the entertainment that we have and the bringing together of the community that we have during that time period. Christmas in Collierville, another great celebration for the town, and something that many people would describe as the hometown feel of Collierville. That intangible thing that's so hard to put your finger on. So I think for all of our residents, I know for the elected officials, it really made us stop and think about, what great things we've done and what great things we look forward to doing again in the future, beginning this year.
Absolutely. You talk about the things we didn't have, but there's so much that you and your leadership team were able to do. If you can, take me through the process of how you and your team navigated through COVID early on.
Right.
And then did you find that you were able to take cues from other neighboring cities, or did you feel like you were kind of on your own blazing a trail?
Right. All of those, basically. When it came to signing the first directive, I said, I've never done this. This is uncharted ground for me. And, what does this mean? I had to decide, what does this mean? Do I, as mayor, because we operate as a board of mayor and aldermen, do I, as mayor, have that authority? So I read the charter again, and yes, I do. I mean, that's one of those things that I am entitled to do. But it was things that had to be done because we had no idea where we were going. A pandemic is not new to Collierville. Okay, if you were talking about our 150th anniversary, I looked back up, and 7 years after the town was chartered in 1870, for the second time actually, we had the yellow fever pandemic.
Right.
So the Civil War almost wiped us out. Following right on its heels was the yellow fever pandemic. So we made it through that. The war didn't get us, the pandemic didn't get us, and COVID is not going to get us. So.
That is great to hear. We are here at Collierville High School. And do you have any thoughts on how other cities throughout this community are handling education during this crisis?
Yeah, I do. And that's a very we don't walk on eggshells, but that's a very touchy thing because citizens reach out to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen just like they do to the school board, but there's a line between those two elected bodies. The school board is duly elected to take care of the Collierville Municipal School District's business. The Board of Mayor and Aldermen takes care of the business of the town of Collierville.
Right.
And I don't pick up the telephone and call Chairman Wright Cox and say, we share ideas, we communicate, don't misunderstand me, but we bounce things off of each other. We also understand that we're all one community, just like Collierville is all one school. And so we have to approach it from that standpoint. I'm aware of that. I talk to Dr. Lilly occasionally. I send him stats that I get that he doesn't get, and we communicate in that way.
Let's talk a little bit about those stats. Tell me a little bit of what's it like in Collierville, where we stand now with the pandemic.
I get a report about twice a month, due for one right now, it breaks down the numbers by municipality. I'm on calls. Well, I was on a call this morning with a joint task force who looks at all this data, pulls all this data together because we couldn't do it on our own, and then deciphers it for us and shows it to us. But one of the biggest questions I'll get asked is, we know what's going on in Shelby County, but what is going on in Collierville? So I printed off the last report that I got, and this is as of January the 31st, and it compared January the 15th to January the 31st. And on January the 15th, the COVID cases in Collierville were 3,623. Then 2 weeks later, they were 3,981. So we grew in that 2-week period 358 cases.
Wow.
Which is a lot.
That's a lot.
And so, and the other communities, the other municipalities are pretty much the same stats. The numbers are different because we're all different sizes.
Right.
But the stats are the same. Deaths on the 15th in Collierville were 33, and just 2 weeks later we were 45.
Oh my goodness!
So the deaths in the Collierville municipality had grown by 12 in just a 2-week period, and that's a lot.
Goodness gracious! Well, we know that everyone has been impacted by this. Mayor, what industries do you believe were hardest hit in Collierville?
Well, obviously the small businessman was probably hit harder. As far as an industry is concerned, I would say immediately there were two, and that was the restaurant industry and then the personal care industry. Beauty shops, stylist shops, even your basic barber shop, we're all declared non-essential by the health department, and therefore we had to close. And then one of the biggest things, or one of the most important things that the mayors talked about in our mayors meetings is, we understand that, but we have got to figure out a way to open back up our economy. We have people that we don't want the cure to be worse than the illness. And that was questioned many times by many different people. And so it was something that, just a process that we had to go through. And I think that the personal care industry has been able to rebound faster than the restaurant industry. And that's based on what people who, when you did your contact tracing after someone came down with COVID, when they did the contact tracing, one of the common things that came out was that they had been to a restaurant during that infectious period. So they've closed now. They've opened back up under the new directive. There is no occupancy requirement for the restaurants. You still have social distancing that you have to maintain there, and you still have to wear masks if you're up moving around. But once you're seated at the table, you can take the mask off to drink and to eat your meal. When it's time to pay the bill, put the mask back on and leave. So I would think, by and large, those were hit the hardest. All businesses were not declared essential businesses, and therefore were under the first orders ordered to close. Many people work remotely. The town of Collierville learned to work remotely. We closed town hall for 3 or 4 weeks. I think it was 4 weeks actually, and so it was a new paradigm. We had to look at it and spend some money, which we did, for equipment very similar to the equipment you got here, so we could hold our meetings.
Well, you talked about early on that when this hit, that you had to go back and really research the charter, see about where your authority lay. You've had to make some tough decisions. And as mayor, how do you handle the negativity or the objections to your ideas? And did it take you some time to really learn how to handle that adversity?
Well, yes, it did. But, and I think if there was one big thing I had to do when I became a planning commissioner, and certainly an elected position, was, my skin a lot of times was kind of thin. you know. And so it had to toughen up. And it's had to toughen up even more as mayor, and even more as we've gone on and faced things like we did with the pandemic. You know, and it's not to get too deep in the weeds on that, but it was a unique situation for Shelby County and 5 other counties in the state of Tennessee that all had their own health department, because the authority was given to those health departments by the governor to make those decisions about what was going to open and what was going to close and for how long and so on and so forth. In the other counties, the other 89 counties, that authority was given to the county mayor.
Oh.
And so the reopening in those 89 counties was probably faster than what you've seen the reopening in Shelby County especially, and the other 5 counties. So in many times, you know, the mayors of all the municipalities worked really well together. Mm-hmm. And we talked and we met, and we decided that when somebody drove from Germantown to Collierville, that they didn't have to say, well, now what is Collierville? What are Collierville's rules in the pandemic, you know? And so we wanted that to be seamless. Or if they came from Bartlett, or if I went to Bartlett for a meeting, I didn't have to worry about what the rules were in Bartlett. You know, we were all under the health directive that the health department, you know, put out.
Sure.
We didn't always agree.
Well,
with the things
that
that were in
consistency is so important.
Right.
Well, now we've all seen that the infection rates are definitely going down.
Right.
We know that the vaccines are being distributed. We're excited about that. How do you see Collierville now begin to move forward so we can begin to see that light at the end of the tunnel?
Right. We're going to come back even stronger, I think. We'll take these this past year, 11 months now, almost 12 months. We'll take that as truly a learning experience. It's made us more agile, if you will, from an employer standpoint, in that if we have an incident like we did last week with the ice and snowstorm that we had, we didn't have to go through and train our employees how to work from home.
Right.
They already knew how to work from home. So that's a great thing for us, and it opened up a situation for us and a business plan for us, where we don't, just because the train jumps off the track, so to speak, we don't have to close business for our residents and for our citizens, and can move forward without missing a beat. We like it much better when we can sit face to face and take care of business, whether it's a customer paying their or a town resident paying their tax bill, or you know, receiving recognition for something great that they've done.
I think we've all had Zoom fatigue, haven't we?
Exactly.
You know, the entire world, as we know, had to cancel so many events in 2020, and we're all looking forward to moving back to some semblance of normalcy. What can Colliervillians look forward to in the future? Any big events that we're planning at this point?
Well, there's a large event that the town's not necessarily planning it, but the town is certainly a part of it, and that is a balloon festival, a hot air balloon festival that we had planned, and we're working with, you know, the group that wants to put this together. And it was planned for the weekend of Father's Day last year. Mm-hmm. And so we're hoping that those plans will come through for this year, and it was going to be themed with our 150th anniversary as well. That would probably be the thing that's coming, you know, that's a big event. We have unfortunately heard from the 20th Century Club, and because of the amount of work that it takes for them to plan for Fair on the Square, they have decided to, not knowing what the pandemic is going to do, they've decided to go ahead and postpone that for another year. Yeah. We've begun making plans for 4th of July celebration with fireworks. We hope that carries right into, into December with our Christmas parade, our lighting of the square, and the Christmas tree there on the square. And so we're pushing as hard as we can to get back to business the way we remember it to be.
Wow, that would be exciting for all of us.
Yeah.
Thinking a little bit about lessons you've learned and the legacy that you're leaving. I mean, you're not going anywhere, hopefully, but we're so excited about what you've done. What is the greatest lesson that you believe that you have learned as mayor of Collierville?
I think, and I hit on it a little bit earlier. I think that, patience has been something that I've had to learn. And, I know I had 3 sons, and I know in fatherly counsel with them, and even today, patience is something that's hard for young folks to deal with. I still have to deal with it.
Sure.
But I think patience, lessons in tolerance, lessons in being able to walk in someone else's shoes, lessons in being able to communicate better and to hear communication better, to listen better. And those are just things off the top of my head that, that I think that I've learned. And as far as the legacy is concerned, I'm still working on that. I have,
Well, again, we don't want you going anywhere. You're
Right.
doing a great job. What do you think is the most rewarding thing about being Collierville's mayor?
Well, we mentioned earlier that some of the things that many people would think were minor things, I look at as being, as the fun things that I get to do as mayor. There are a lot of things that I get to do as mayor that are not fun, but, doing a proclamation for someone's achievement, doing a National Day of Prayer proclamation. That just, I love to do that. I love to do it for people that have accomplished something and people who have set a legacy, to recognize that. And so those are the things that are really enjoyable. This is enjoyable.
Absolutely.
And so anyway,
Well, I appreciate
fun.
that. I know personal reflection. When I was chairman of the Shelby County School Board, my favorite thing I had to do all year was giving the diplomas out
Right.
every year.
Oh, yes.
And looking into those kids' eyes when they're walking across the stage.
Right.
It's those milestone moments in people's lives
Absolutely.
that we have a chance to be a part of.
Right.
That's so important. Since we're filming this show inside of this gorgeous Collierville
Yes.
High School building that your leadership really helped make come true, what message do you have for the students of this great school when it comes to leading a life of service?
Yes. Well, this didn't come easy. And so my message to them was that many, many things that are worthwhile don't come easy. You have to have the perseverance. Some would say intestinal fortitude to be able to deal with disappointment and to be able to deal with adversity, and in many cases be able to deal with setbacks or even defeats. And then just have your vision out there of what you want to accomplish. Get people to embrace that vision and to buy into that vision, and then manage how you get to that vision and how you make it even better. And those would be the things I would pass on to the students. This is truly for anybody that worked on this, and for all the taxpayers of the town of Collierville, a symbol of how much we love our young folks and how much we want their opportunities to be maybe better than our opportunities were. And whatever it is, that's what we want to provide for them. So I hope they don't take it for granted.
You mentioned earlier that you're still working on your legacy, and I think we all are every day of our life. But not just as a mayor, but as a man. If you had your dream, if you had your wish, what would you want people to say about Stan Joyner 50 years from now, 100 years from now?
Well, if they just heard the name, that would be, and didn't have to say who was that, would be one thing. But there are men and women who have come along in my life that I'll never forget. Sunday school teachers, principal, favorite teacher in high school, favorite coach. All those people come to my mind, and I would hope that as mentors, and even today, I'm in touch with my high school football coach. This is 50 plus years later, and we still occasionally talk, and he will come to visit and that type thing. And so, you know, he certainly made an impression on my life as my mother and father did. We were a tight family. I had 4 brothers, no sisters, 5 boys. I feel sorry looking back on that for my mother and my father, having to do that, especially my mother. But anyway, so there, you know, when you start remembering people and thanking people, just more people come to mind.
You have already left a great legacy, and your leadership inspires us every day. So thank you very much, and thank you for being our very first guest on Bull Talk. So we're excited to have you and hope to have you come back.
Well, thank you. I would appreciate that opportunity sometime.
That would be awesome.
Thank you.
Mayor Joyner, thank you for your service to our community.
Thank you.
Your dedicated leadership has set a heroic example for all to follow. One of my personal heroes was the great British wartime Prime Minister, Winston Churchill. During some of the darkest hours of World War II, at a time when the very liberty of his country was at stake, Churchill was able to lead the British people by the force of his will and the power of his words. His ability to inspire a nation and mobilize his people to overcome incredible obstacles was a primary contributor to England surviving the raids of a foreign enemy. This virus has been a different sort of attacker, a silent and invisible enemy that's challenged our nation and our world. We have all witnessed the hardships and challenges wrought by this virus. Our nation has always been characterized by the indomitable spirit of our people. Together, we can overcome any challenge. The past 12 months have witnessed scientific breakthroughs in treatments and vaccines that no one felt was possible. Today, we appear to be on a path to overcome this virus and hopefully return to some semblance of normalcy. And hopefully soon, this pandemic will become a memory. But we will never forget the sacrifice and selfless service of so many. We will never forget the frontline heroes who have risked their lives to serve our most vulnerable. Churchill once said, "We make a living by what we get, but we make a life by what we give." Together, we can overcome any challenge. Together, we must continue to embrace our responsibilities as citizens to lead, to serve, and to make a life by what we give. And that is my 2 cents. We invite you to join us next month as we sit down with Collierville School Superintendent Dr. Gary Lilly to discuss how our town schools pivoted and succeeded during the pandemic and how Collierville will adapt its teaching and learning methods in a post-COVID world. Over the next few episodes, we'll be incorporating more dynamic content, including a Bullcast the Podcast segment with Katie Pickler and Court Winsett, and the Collierville Connection segment featuring neat facts and hidden gems of Collierville. Until next time, I'm your host, David Pickler. Thank you for watching Bull TV, where together we deliver solutions for a stronger community.